It's my feel-good breakfast show.
It's time for another edition of one of our favorite Wednesday features where we focus on the unconventional side of law, where we educate you. It's called So Now What? And we're joined once again by our expert lawyer and director at legalese.co.za, a great resource and a great mate, Eitan Stern. Lawyers are expensive. He doesn't come cheap. Going to court takes a lot of time out of your life. And by the end of it, you are drained, you might be broke, and probably worse off than when you started. So this morning, we're going to chat about how you can resolve a legal dispute without having to go to court. Basically, make your job redundant. That's the aim. No, the bottom line is, unless you've been to court, you don't know how much it actually sucks. Whether you're on the winning or losing side, I know money has a value, yes, but the experience of going through that, it can be quite
I think,
rough.
look, lawyers have a big role in society, but with disputes, I think people go to court a little bit too easily. And as you say, it's really expensive. It can take a long time for you to even get a court date.
Get a result,
and it's a bit of a gamble because you're not sure how it's going to land up in the end.
So what kind of disputes can be resolved without going to court that kind of move into that legal, where generally someone is like, I want to sue you right now, but what kind of disputes are we talking about here?
I mean, the answer to it really is any sorts of disputes. There are absolutely no rules on what disputes you can sort out of court, but there are rules on what disputes you can sort out in court. So, you can really sort anything out of court. There are lots of ways to resolve disputes without suing people, and all we need to do is to try them.
Like, if it doesn't work, it's like, how does this normally escalate? What is the point of no return, do you think, where people go to that legal kind of extent?
So how do you go about doing it?
Yeah.
Well, so firstly, what you got to do in order to resolve a dispute would be, to do something which is actually quite simple, but a lot of people don't do, which is to ask the other person for what you want. Don't shout it, don't scream it, don't swear it. Just say, this is how I feel I've been wrong. State your case. This is what I want. If that doesn't work, then you can ask it in a more formal way. Write it in a letter. Say, this is what's happened, this is what I want from you, and if you haven't done it by such and such date, then I'm going to take legal action. So really, asking for what you want in a more formal way is a great way to start it. If that doesn't work, then there's a whole lot of other legal remedies that are open for you. There's mediation, which we'll chat about, arbitration, small claims court, and there are lots of things that you can do which aren't suing someone.
Let's quickly touch on one of the things the words that you said there, mediation.
Sure.
Because that makes me feel comfortable already. It makes me feel calm already, because you're now bringing in a third party to kind of keep the court. Is that how it works? Is that considered a legal recourse, or is it? So would you go to a lawyer for mediation?
So definitely. So you get people in society that are called mediators. Sometimes they're lawyers. Sometimes it's a separate career. And what it is, it's an independent, unbiased third party who sits with the two people in a dispute or three people in a dispute and helps them have a conversation, helps everyone to be heard, throws around some solutions, some suggestions, and tries to get the two parties to make a decision. It's not a judge. They don't make a ruling. They just try help them make a decision.
Sounding board, yeah.
And it can be part of the legal process. In the UK, there's a pilot project to make people go through mediation before they're allowed to go to court, because it's really, really a successful process with some great results. So if you're in a dispute, you can put your egos aside for a second, and if you're willing to sit around the table with a mediator, a nice round table, you can really get some good action.
I'm just thinking, it's just hit me now, like, especially when families and children, and that's, I think, where the law really can just destroy a family in that sense.
Through a divorce proceeding, there's absolutely no reason why the two parties have to go to their own lawyers and fight it out. Mediators can be very effective in a divorce and can make it a lot more of an amicable process.
Well, from mediation to arbitration, we'll continue on this journey. We are talking about taking those steps before taking legal steps. How can you come to some sort of resolution in a dispute without having to take it to the full extent? We'll continue this discussion in just a moment.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Knowing knowing that lawyers are pretty expensive, that going through a trial or actually taking someone to court can be quite a taxing and costly affair that might not necessarily work out in your favor, we are looking at ways of resolving legal disputes without actually going to the full extent. And we've spoken about mediation, which makes a lot of sense, sounds like a really positive way of addressing this. Eitan is going to take us through the next step, using arbitration. So what is arbitration, first of all?
Okay,
How does it
so
differ
arbitration
from-
is like a mini court. It's like a play court. So it's, you don't go
All due
to
respect.
No, it's a fantastic medium. So instead of going to a judge, you appoint what's called an arbitrator. They're like a judge light. And they run a court case according to a set of rules that are set by the Arbitration Foundation. And they would listen to the two arguments and make a finding. And then the two people there in the dispute would agree that the arbitrator's decision will be binding. So,
So it doesn't get enforced. You've both then, once that
Exactly.
arbitration
Well, you
process has
can.
happened,
I mean,
you've
you
got
can take that arbitration finding and take it to court to get confirmed. But the bottom line is what you do is you kind of set up your own court case, and that's going to be a lot cheaper and a lot quicker. It might take you at least a year to get a court date, but with an arbitrator, you could set up the arbitration for next week if you wanted.
Okay, so we've tried it. We've tried mediation, hasn't worked. We've tried arbitration, hasn't worked. What's the next step?
Okay, so another step which you could choose, which if it's for a small dispute, which a lot of the disputes which we deal with are, so it's a dispute where the quantum amount is under 20,000 Rand, you can go to this brilliant thing called the small claims court. You don't need a lawyer, you do all the paperwork yourself, you go down to the small claims court and you get a court case where you don't need lawyers, and a judge will make a finding. And then if you get a judgment in that, it's got the same binding nature as a magistrate's court judgment. So if you got a small dispute for under 20,000 Rand, you can't afford a lawyer, try out the small claims court. It's brilliant. Another thing which you can check out are your industry ombudsmen. So different industries will have industry bodies. So insurance.
watchdog,
Yeah, exactly. The consumer watchdogs. You can go to them and say, I've got this issue in the industry. Can you help me? That's a very great mechanism.
Go and get a buddy on your side in that sense. Okay, so let's take it to the extreme now, which we've
Okay.
tried to avoid. We've exhausted every other option. We've been humble, we've been calm,
Yes.
and now there is an impasse, and we need to get a result. So, what's the
next?
best way? Do you engage with a lawyer? How do you go about that? The negative side
so
of that?
exactly as you say, you've gone through all the steps before, you tried everything. That's where lawyers do come in, and that's where the court system comes in. And it's a brilliant mechanism. It's a fantastic way to resolve disputes if the dispute needs to be there. Go to a lawyer, explain your dispute, and a lawyer will take you through that process. Hopefully that lawyer will be able to resolve the dispute through a negotiation before it gets to court. But if it doesn't, then you've got a judge who makes a finding, and that's binding.
But bear in mind that can take a long time. So
Take a long time.
let's get real here. When do you start paying for your lawyer?
Okay,
From
well-
that first consultation, I've been paying you for the last 5 minutes, in the real world.
8.5 minutes, actually.
Buddy, who's counting?
So generally, a lot of lawyers will do a first consultation free to get a feel. Some of them won't, but it's important if you're contacting a lawyer, just find out what they're charging, and try and make sure that you go into a lawyer who's trustworthy, who can help you
How much
resolve
will you
the
pay
dispute.
for a lawyer? Break it down for me. You don't have to give me yours, but it's just a rate.
Lawyers' rates, depending on how senior they are, can go from 1,000 Rand an hour to 10,000 Rand an hour for the best lawyers in the country. So it can be an expensive process. Of course, for your general litigation lawyer, you're probably going to be paying around 1,500, 2,000 Rand an hour. So it's expensive stuff, and that's why you're going to hope that your lawyer can resolve it before they get to court.
Yeah, lawyers are people too, man. They just want to see a better world and everybody's smiling. Now, I think...
we at Legalese, we actually don't do any litigation. All the work that we do focuses around how you make sure that disputes are resolved before they get to court. And in 5 years of running a business, I think maybe 1 or 2 of our matters have ever got to court.
I had to force the issue.
Yeah.
Buddy, thank you so much. This really has been an interesting one. So hopefully this has given you a bit of a roadmap, a checklist of things that you can go through without having to go to the full extent of the law, so to speak, and hopefully resolve these conflicts, legal conflicts, in an amicable way.